Welcome. Today I'm talking about meetings. Meetings are something that really sometimes is so boring that I never want to go to. How many times do we all go to a meeting and we're just so upset about it because we're sitting there and nothing's getting done? Why can't we have effective meetings? And there are easy techniques we can all use to have effective meetings. And I forget why some people just don't use them. It always bothers me when we go to a meeting and you're wondering why you can't be there. I want to point out in this video some techniques we can use that really get people engaged and excited and want to be at those meetings. So I want you to use these tips to really get there. The first tip that we want to do in any meeting is only invite the people that need to be there. Why do we have all these other people in the room? You just want to include the key people from each area to those meetings. Because if you keep them in the key people only, you slow down, you focus then on the objective of the meeting, and then it's you as the host and leader being able to have the discussions you need to have to reach what objectives you're going to in that meeting. There's nothing strange about it, but in this tutorial, I want to talk about, let's talk about building a new store location. So what do we need to do to build that new store location and make that happen? So what are those tips that we need to do? First, only invite the people you need to be there. That's it. The second thing we need to do in any meeting is to have an agenda. Agenda is the most important. It lists the goals and what we're trying to do. I set my agenda very specifically. I put the name of the meeting on the top. Underneath it, I put the date and time of the meeting. And then right after that, I put the type of meeting it is. Is it an in-person meeting or is it using Zoom or Teams or something similar? The reason to have this at the top, it helps keep you a dynamic record of what you're trying to achieve and how you do it. If you do it that way, this gives you a record of what you're trying to do. How do I build my agenda topics? Most people ask me all the time. I do it based on what we're trying to do. And I only do it bulleted list. I don't write long descriptions or anything else in my agenda. I do bulleted lists. So what do I do? If we're trying to do this opening a new store location, I'll make a bulleted list of the opening date, the store preparation, sales, technology, inventory, and staffing and scheduling. I'll put each one of those on the agenda. And then if somebody's name is associated with it, so let's say inventory is associated with Stanley, I'll put a dash and put Stanley there. So that when I know I get to that location, I want Stanley to talk. That's it I would do for the agenda, but the agenda I will give out at the beginning of the meeting. Either post through Zoom, set up and hand out if I'm in an in-person meeting, and then what it really handles, it focuses us and makes sure the agenda moves forward. When you do this, it makes it smooth and it's an easy transition and meetings flow. That's what you're looking for in building any meeting as we go forward. At this time, I'd like you to do me a favor. If you like what we're talking about, hit like right below or hit subscribe. The more people who like and subscribe it helps us to make more videos that are pertinent and interesting related to what you're looking for in your career development. Team collaboration is the next thing we always have to think about when we're going in a meeting. You want to make sure that that group that you've assembled really works together, the best team collaboration you can offer. And when you're thinking about that, you have to think about the topic and how it applies to what they're doing. Our topic is opening a new store. And since we're opening a new store, there's lots of different things that go on the agenda we have to consider. And prepping the store happens to be something that's big, which requires a lot of setup as we think about it. So as you think about that, you want to first set the ground rules. And one of the ground rules I always say is this is a no judgment zone. We all want ideas and I all want your input in figuring out the best way to do this. And everybody here has something to contribute on every topic. By saying that, You're opening up the conversation and the meeting for a fruitful discussion. That's what you're looking for is that fruitful discussion that you can get. This technique helps people be more engaged. And if they realize that their points are valued and taken in and then implemented, they all feel like they're being a contributing member to the team. And that's what you're looking for as you do this. Another way I do it is if you remember when I said the agenda, I put the person's name next to it. I let that person start that topic and talk about why it's important to them and what they're trying to achieve. And then you, as the leader, take a step back or a host and let them do the talking and let the group have a discussion. By doing that, you really are helping to keep the conversation going. Also, if the conversation gets stuck anywhere, ask an open ended question where a question that's trying to get them to idea of what's going on and expand it. Like you could ask, what happens when the first customer walks in the door? How's the store going to work? It's open-ended and people may have different ideas of what they expect, but making them to think about that and having that open-ended discussion really helps them figure out their setup and what they want to do. We're just trying to achieve the goals that the company has put forth or our own objectives. So we have to work together to achieve that. By doing these techniques, you'll be able to have a good team collaboration as we move forward. The next topic I'd like to discuss is time management. Time management in a meeting is happens to be the most important, but also the most difficult for anybody to actually try to implement as we do it. Time management really is that keeping your meeting within that allotted time period. And how do you do that? It ends up being very difficult to do when you're in a meeting because lots of things happen. But if you have some knowledge about what are the appropriate time management skills, you'll be able to figure that out. So, one thing in a 30-minute meeting, you really only can cover about 4 topics in a 30-minute meeting to get them done efficiently with the appropriate discussion. I think a meeting should no longer last than more than an hour. Our meetings, you can really get 7 or 8 topics covered in that time period. By knowing that, you really can figure out how and many topics and what you can cover in the process. So, one of the things I always try to do, which people don't like, is I ask them to silent the device or silent their emails during the meeting. It's something that a number of people find that's hard to do. But when I find people do that, meetings are more efficient. People like going to my meetings. And then also, we're able to get the topics covered that we don't need follow up meetings. And that's a real thing you have to figure out as you're doing this. How do you do it so that there's time periods so that the appropriate people who are sitting there have that discussion that needs to happen as they do it? Another trick I do in time management, informational things that are already set by management or by other things, I mentioned at the beginning of the agenda so that I can go through them very quickly and then we move on. So we're talking about this Halloween store that we're opening. There's a date set that has to open. I'll just reiterate that at the beginning and say the date of opening is October 1st. And now everybody knows there's not a discussion that needs to happen. It just goes through those informational things as you do it. But you're going to say, well, Dave, how long are topics discussed in a meeting? If I'm in a 30-minute meeting, how many topics can I really discuss? You said 4 topics. Well, that means you have about 8 minutes per topic to really discuss something. It's not a lot of time, but if you know that rhythm, you can get a good idea of, okay, one topic goes longer, one topic goes less as you figure it out. And understanding the rhythm of that time management will help you to figure out what's the real gist of the meeting and know how to keep the meeting moving in an appropriate way. I always try, if possible, to leave a few minutes at the end of every meeting to recap and have follow-up questions, because there's usually that time period where things come up that maybe you didn't have a chance to ask during the topic because you want to just clarify something or whatever. This is that time when the whole group is still engaged and there as we do it. To summarize all this, remember that everybody wants to come to a meeting where it's engaging and they feel like they're adding value. People sometimes just schedule meetings just to hear each other talk, and that's not really efficient. You really want to be there to get the right people in the room and make it effective. So if you can make the meeting engaging and use these steps to really help, you're going to see a lot more engagement and you're going to see topics getting done and projects moving forward a lot quicker than they would without these tips. Thanks so much.